The sun rose over Aegae, casting golden light on a day meant for unity. Trumpets sounded loud and crowds gathered. A royal wedding meant to celebrate peace. But as King Philip II stepped into the theater, smiling and unarmed, what happened after was unthinkable. A single blade flashed. Could you imagine the world changing in just one heartbeat? The king of Macedonia was struck down in cold blood, right before the eyes of his people. Everyone saw the killer, but no one, not even a single being, could see the truth. Because what if this wasn't just a murder or just an assassination, but a plan which was years in making? What if the young prince, Alexander, wasn't just a witness, but a part of this design, watching everything secretively in the shadows? Before becoming a corpse in a pool of royal blood, Philip II was known to be the most powerful man in the Greek world. He took Macedonia when it was a ruin, very fragile and very war-torn, but in no time he turned it into a military machine, an army, an empire that was unbeatable. While Athens, democratic, and Sparta, oligarchy, the two strong and strengthened states in time, fought and squabbled, especially during the Peloponnesian War, Philip trained a new kind of army which was disciplined, deadly, and most importantly, loyal. He wasn't just a king, he was a visionary, a conqueror, and above all, he was also a man. A man with weaknesses, many marriages, and many enemies. His fourth wife, Olympias, was a wild lady, very proud and fiercely protective of her son, Alexander. And that's where the tension began. Philip had other wives and other children, but Olympias made Alexander the best of all, be it intelligence in science, philosophy, politics, or warfare, or his charisma. He also had a command on strategic military skills. His confidence was top-notch, but it was so calculated that no one could bring him down on anything. Despite his brilliance, Philip began favoring others specially after marrying a young Macedonian noblewoman. Her name was Cleopatra Eurydice. The worst about Philip's life was that besides winning wars, he was surrounded by enemies internally, some of them sleeping under his own roof. Philip's royal wedding was meant to bring Macedonia together. Philip's daughter Cleopatra, Philip's last wife's name, Cleopatra Eurydice, coincidentally occurred to be the same as his daughter, was marrying Alexander of Epirus, Olympias' own brother. But beneath the golden garlands, the cracks were widening. Olympias was furious about being cast aside, and she left the court. Alexander, after drinking alcohol, got into a public spat with Philip and followed his mother's exile out of humiliation. On the wedding day, the theater was packed. Macedonian nobility, foreign dignitaries, generals, priests, all were there. The king entered the arena unarmed, fully confident and beaming, just like a divine hero in flesh and blood. Everyone in the crowd was happy for Philip except for one, the face of a royal bodyguard, Pausanias of Orestis, filled with betrayal and grudge. He wasn't there to cheer, but to strike the happiness on every face. He was there to kill. The sun lit the marble theater, and it was bright and bloomy. Philip marched between rows of cheering Macedonians. Everything was going fine until it happened. Pausanias broke ranks. He sprinted forward so fast but so silent that no one could notice him. And just then, he drove a dagger straight into Philip's chest. The king collapsed. Screams erupted in the theater. The guards lunged. Pausanias turned to run, knowing exactly where the escape route was, and he even had a horse waiting nearby for him. But he slipped or was tripped, and the guards caught him in that moment and killed him on spot. No interrogation, no trial, just silence. The king was dead, but so was the only man who could have explained why. This could be Pausanias' vengeance, as he was a close companion of Philip. but he had been disgraced and allegedly assaulted by the allies of Cleopatra, Eurydice's uncle, and Philip had totally failed to protect him. This seemed like simple revenge, but here's when things got murky. Olympias openly praised Pausanias after the murder, and even honored him with a hero's tomb. Even Alexander didn't hesitate to hide his ambitions and his hunger for power after the murder. At the time when the throne was completely empty, no one but Alexander was the only one who could occupy it, and as Pausanias was already killed the same day as Philip, no one else but him was easily blamed. Here, everything seemed too perfect and too planned, because the one person who truly benefited from Philip's death wasn't the man with the dagger, but in fact it was his son, just a 20 years old Alexander. The dawn of Alexander Olympias had left for Epirus, her homeland, out of jealousy and pride, and Alexander went out with her because of the frustration and tension with his father. But as Philip got murdered, they came back suddenly. No one knew if it was for peace or for the final reckoning. Within days, Alexander secured the Macedonian throne. He moved so fast and so ruthlessly. In the days of Alexander's rising, Cleopatra Eurydice and her newborn were found dead, and Olympias was likely behind it as she considered them potential rivals. Alexander didn't even budge to stop her, and didn't let this come in his way. He summoned the army and delivered fiery speeches. He swore to complete his father's dream of a war against Persia. All the generals who were loyal to Philip chose to follow Alexander, and just like that, a teenage king stood at the helm of one of the greatest armies in the world. No one knew if it was fate or something that he had planned for himself. The murder, the crown being his, and the path running towards more power. No one would be able to remember any other king like Alexander. He created his own history. His level was unmatched. Alexander crossed into Asia, conquered Persia like he promised, but he kept on going further and further like a bullet, and it seemed like no one could stop him. He marched to India as well. His name echoed from Greece to Egypt to Babylon. But where did it all begin? With that one dagger and one death. It's still complex to think that what if Philip lived and led the invasion of Persia himself? Would Alexander have become the Great, as he is remembered today? Or was this destiny written in blood? One dagger, one moment, one king's final breath. It didn't just end a reign, but it also shattered the balance of power in the ancient world. But who truly pulled the strings? Was it the scorned Queen Olympias, burning with fury after being cast aside, or the young Prince Alexander, bold and brilliant, and who was eager to claim his destiny, or perhaps Pausanias, which was a royal but wounded bodyguard? It can't be said if it was his revenge or someone else as planned, just driven by him. The truth vanished with his blood on the sand. Although history still debates the killer's motive or if a mastermind was behind it, there's one thing that remains beyond doubt, and that is, the death of Philip II did not just silence a king, but it unleashed a conqueror who not only kept his father's words but also sparked the whole empire. It forged the legend of Alexander the Great.